So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. That is Caleb speaking to Joshua at 85 years old, vigorous, energized, and eager to go out to battle at 85, just as vigorous as he was at 45. And if Caleb were alive today, he would massively disapprove of the epidemic of Christian obesity. Because when Christian men are overweight, when Christian men are tired, when they are numb to their own emotions, constantly turning to food for comfort, when they're weak, when they're dying early, they cannot inherit the promises of God. They can't experience the promises of God. And this is personally relevant to me because I see this in so many Christian men. I saw this in my own father who died at 55 years old. There were countless promises, countless blessings that he took hope in that he did not get to experience because of his health. And so many men are experiencing the same thing. Now, all of this begs the question, okay, Caleb, 85, how was he energized to stay strong? How was he energized to stay vigorous until the age of 85? The reason why Caleb was so powerfully energized to stay this strong into his old age was not because, some 23-year-old fitness influencer was telling him he wasn't going to get to, have all the chicks if he didn't have a six-pack. He wasn't trying to get ripped so he can look it on the beach. The reason Caleb was so energized to stay strong into his old age was because he had a clear perception and understanding of God's promises for his life. He knew his inheritance with certainty. There's even a story in the book of Exodus where after Moses chooses 12 leaders from the Hebrew people and sends them out to go out and scan over the promised land, a bunch of the other men get scared when they're looking at God's promises. They're looking at the promised land. All these other men get scared and they start to say, you know what? The Canaanites, they're too big, they're too scary, they're too large, we can't do it. God promised us this incredible inheritance, but it's too unlikely that we receive it. And they start freaking out. But Caleb, he stands strong. He's the one who basically tells all these other guys to suck it up because if God promised something to them, then it was a guarantee that they would inherit it, no matter the circumstance, no matter the struggle, no matter the perceived unlikelihood. And this is a lot of times what happens with Christian men. We look at this prospect of getting old and being able to be there alive for our families. We look at this prospect of getting old and being able to experience the blessings of retirement, right? How many men work so hard for their retirement only to end up at 65 unable to enjoy their retirement, whether because they died or because they weren't able to experience it. They couldn't go out golfing. They couldn't go out on hikes with their wife. How many men like my dad saw so much hope in being able to meet their grandchildren only to die right before? You see, what motivated Caleb to stay so strong and so vigorous into his old age was his certainty in God's promises for his life and his inheritance. Because this is Caleb claiming with conviction to Joshua, telling Joshua, hey man, this is what God promised me. This is all the land that God promised me. And I know God doesn't go back on his promises. So I've stayed strong. I've stayed healthy. I've stayed capable enough to receive this promise here on earth. So many times as Christian men, we think about promises and rewards in heaven, and that's so true. And that's what's most important. But there are promises that God has for us here on earth that are a precursor or reflection of what he has for us in heaven. And so if you're a Christian man and you were once strong and you were once invigorated by the mission that was given to you in your earlier years, just like Caleb, who was called at 45 years old by Moses. If you were once sharp, if you were once focused on being who you needed to be so that you can do all that God has called you into, but you have lost that edge, you have lost that energy, you have lost that motivation, then remind yourself of God's promises for your life. Because there are so many promises on the other side of you staying strong and you staying vigorous. There are so many things worth staying healthy for. And if you lose that drive, then there's a chance you don't experience them. There's a chance you forfeit and forego your inheritance. But if you can take heart in God's promises, maybe you can be a bit more like Caleb, and you can receive those promises, even into your old age. That's it. See you in the next one.